What is up, guys? It is Dillo, and welcome to the second episode of Dillo's Dojo podcast. That is the actual title I've finally decided on. So this week is the recap of UFC 251, KSW 53, which both happened yesterday as of recording this, which is Sunday, July 12th. And the main event, I'll be covering that, of LFA 84. And I'll be covering some other events that happened in LFA 84. If you already follow the community as close as I do, then you might know what I'm going to be talking about that event. But also in the podcast, we'll be talking about the Dan Ige versus Calvin Kattar fight, the LFA 85 card that'll be happening next week, and we will be talking about the flyweight title that's happening next Saturday between either Joseph Benavidez and Davison Figueiredo or Alejandro Pantoja. And we don't know what's happening yet, so we'll talk about that. But to start it off, let's actually talk about the LFA 84 main event and some things that happened. So the card wasn't too much to talk about. I watched the whole card. It was a small, 4-fight affair. There was a couple good fights on there. But the second fight of the main card, we're going to start with that. I believe it was the second fight of the main card. It was between Boston Stamin and Sean West. Boston Stamin is a UFC, a former UFC fighter. He's not a veteran. He had 2 fights in the organization, got knocked out both times. So honestly, I wouldn't even call him a veteran, but he's still a young rising kid. The only issue is both of his UFC fights ended with him being knocked out. And that's where we're going to be getting in this talk about here. So he was up against 16-10 Sean West. To me, he's more of a journeyman. You know, a lot of people would call somebody like Jorge Masvidal a journeyman. No, somebody like this is a journeyman who has a mediocre record, but, still pretty decent and has been down the road. Anyway, that's besides the point. So the fight was, a little back and forth the whole time. It was pretty much a striking affair with a couple of grappling exchanges, but it was really fun to watch. And the first round was pretty even, but I'd say I would have edged it out to Sean West. Going into the second round, though, it didn't even get a minute into the second round. They were striking back and forth, literally throwing bombs, the type of shit that you would do at the end of a fight where you'd stand in the middle of the octagon and pretty much just throw down on a napkin with your opponent. So these guys were just throwing bombs at each other back and forth. They were hitting each other, and it wasn't even a minute into the fucking second round, and they both hit each other with, it seemed to be, I think Boston Stamin hit him with a left hook. They hit each other with left hooks, it looked like. They both stunned each other, and Boston Stamin fell to his knees. He was trying to recover, and Sean West was stumbling too, but by then, Sean West was kind of recovered, and he saw that Boston Stamin was, he was on the ground. Boston Stamin was still on the ground. Now, I don't know what was going on through Sean West's head, if he was still kind of, groggy there, or I don't know if he was just all caught up in the moment and it was the adrenaline. I've seen some people say this is something that Sean West does, but I can't confirm that, so I'm not going to say that for a fact. So, like I said, I don't know if it was him being in the moment or if he just thought differently, but after he saw that Boston Stamin was still on the ground, I'm assuming that he thought that Boston Stamin was getting up off his knees, and he saw that he was off his knees, and Sean West just fucking bolted right in there with a nice, brutal knee to the fucking head. But the thing was, Boston Stamin's knee was still, down on the ground, clear as day. And the knee was so brutal, he fucking knocked Boston Stamin cross-eyed. I thought the man was dead. I was pretty worried for him. It was a pretty brutal knee. And the stupid thing was, like I said, I don't know if it was him caught up in the moment and he didn't realize or what, but he just started celebrating. He just started celebrating like he won. And then after, the ref was telling him, hey, man, nope, you didn't win. You just committed an illegal fucking foul, a big illegal foul. It's a fight-ending foul, so it ends in a DQ. After some consideration, some conversation between the officials and the ref and stuff, yeah, they obviously fucking ruled it a disqualification. And a lot of people were talking about it that night, and you can easily find the fucking the video of it. Just look up LFA 84 Boston Stamin knockout, and you will see probably the scariest knee to the downed opponent you'll ever see, probably since the Pride days. It's so fucking brutal. That being said, we'll move on to the main event of LFA 84, which was between two undefeated fighters. The saying that I love to say, and especially in a title fight, because this was for the vacant featherweight championship of LFA. So it was between 10-0 Justin Gonzalez, a former, I think, wrestling teammate of Justin Gaethje, and I think a sparring partner of Justin Gaethje. I don't know if they still train together, but he has a few connections to Justin Gaethje. And then against 8-0 Jake Childers. Yeah, I looked at his name at first. It's spelled Childers, like Childers, but it's Childers, so I guess. But these two guys are just incredible fighters. Justin Gonzalez being the former LFA featherweight champion, I believe, until he vacated it to go compete on the Contender Series, which I think he won his fights on the Contender Series, obviously, because his O is still there, but unfortunately did not get the contract, as, you know, obviously known for with Dana White and the Contender Series. So he was pretty upset about that, came back to LFA, got awarded this title shot, and yeah, now it's two guys against each other. And like I said, my favorite saying is someone's O has got to go, especially in a title setting. It's just an awesome thing to fucking witness. Two undefeated guys, they're going to be hungry not only for the belt, but to keep their undefeated streak going. It was really fun. So going into the fight, it started off pretty basic. Justin Gonzalez, obviously being a wrestler, you would have expected him to go for takedowns, but they both started striking at the beginning, and it was pretty fun to watch. It was a back-and-forth battle. After a couple minutes of the fight, though, Justin Gonzalez started going for takedowns, and it ended up on the ground, where it started happening with a couple of grappling exchanges, some passing and scrambling. After a while, Justin Gonzalez got his back and ended up locking in a rear naked choke. And yeah, he was fighting it for a while, a good while, until he just had to tap, because there was a couple times where he was rolling out of it, but Justin Gonzalez's like body triangle on like his lower half was so tight, there was just no getting Justin Gonzalez off his back, so he was just struggling the whole time. And then finally Justin Gonzalez got the rear naked choke in, and now he's the new LFA featherweight champion. And honestly, I love watching these smaller promotions. I'm hoping to see him defend the title a couple of times. Maybe see him in the Contender Series. I don't know. That'd be cool to see him in the Contender Series. But like I said, I don't know if he'll do that anytime soon, considering he has a little bit of bitterness with the UFC. I believe Pat Miletich and the other guy asked him that night if he was going to go back to the UFC. And he even said, he's like, if the opportunity arises, sure. But right now, I just want to see what I'm going to be getting in the future between them and LFA opponents. So I'm excited to see the future of Justin Gonzalez. The way I saw him fight that night, he seemed to be pretty impressive, and he fought incredible on the Contender Series. And I was really disappointed to hear that he did not get a contract. So I'm excited to see what he does in LFA, and if he gets another shot in the UFC, and then next time gets a contract, I'd love to see him in the featherweight division and see what type of damage he can do. He's still a little bit young, so you know, he's still got a lot of years left to get in his gas tank. That's it for LFA 84, I guess. I wanted to talk about KSW 53 just real quick, because I didn't watch the whole card. I watched the main event. I was busy yesterday preparing for UFC 251 and everything, so I guess I'll talk about the main event. The main event was between Matus Garmo. I think that's how you say his name. I remember how it looks. I'm trying to remember how to say it. I think it's Matus Garmo. And UFC veteran Stormin Norman Park. It was just a lightweight championship bout, or it was supposed to be, but Norman Park missed weight, unfortunately. And it was a fun fight to watch. It was good for like a good 3 rounds, a back and forth affair, even though mostly it was Matus piecing up Norman Park while Norman Park tried to kind of implement his striking. Even Norman Park said after the main event that Garmo's striking is weird and unorthodox, and he hits you at angles that you just don't expect and stuff. So that was pretty neat to see, because he really does. I was watching the whole fight, and I just kind of thought, I'm like, he's really effective with these strikes. That he's hitting them from weird angles that I wouldn't see work in other scenarios, but it was really neat to watch him fight because I've actually never seen Matus Garmo fight before. I've seen Norman Park fight before because of the UFC and stuff, obviously, in a couple of events in KSW, but I have never seen Matus Garmo fight, or at least I don't remember seeing him fight, so this was the first time for me seeing him fight. But the fight was pretty fun up until the third round when it was clear that Norman Park's eye was getting pretty fucking mucky looking. And the ref had to stop the fight and call a doctor in, and even the doctor, we all thought it. Everybody watching was like, yeah, no, Norman Parks' eye is absolutely grotesque right now. It's closing. It's going to be a huge problem. The doctor agreed, and bam, there we go. The fight ended via doctor stoppage, and Matus Garmo won. So that's it for the KSW 53 main event, I guess. That's all I was going to talk about with that. I just wanted to bring that up because next time when KSW has another event, I'm obviously going to be watching it. The only reason I caught the main event was because as the event was going on, not the main event, but the card, I didn't know it was going on until somebody told me, so I just caught the main event when I was out, when I finally found out that it was on. So that's another promotion that I'd recommend checking out if you really want to get into MMA. They've got incredible fights from people all over Europe. They have absolute killers that sometimes comes over to the UFC and absolutely destroys people. They have a lot of UFC caliber guys there, and even ex-UFC fighters there, so it's just really exciting to see. Honestly, those promotions all over Europe and like Asia and shit, those smaller promotions that aren't the UFC, or, you know, bigger in those regions, they're the ones to watch, in my opinion, because they have some of the best fights. Obviously, for the bigger fights, you want to watch UFC and stuff, but I think the best cards for, like, some of the most explosive fights, not name-wise, but just, like, sleepers, are the smaller promotions, you know, the LFAs, the KSWs, the Invicta FCs, the 1 FCs, Road FCs, that type of shit. I do recommend checking out those cards. You can probably find streams of them, but I watch all mine on Fight Pass, or KSW you can watch on Fight TV. They offer those pay-per-views on Fight TV, so that's where you can watch most of them. Like I said, LFA is now on Fight Pass. I watch all my shit on Fight Pass with LFA and like Titan FC and stuff, so if you want to watch those smaller promotions, I recommend getting UFC Fight Pass. It's honestly worth the investment, in my opinion. And no, I'm not sponsored by them. I love using UFC Fight Pass when I want to watch fights or The Ultimate Fighter or something like that. When I just want to get something new into my bloodstream, right? So I do recommend it. But anyway, we're going to move on to the big one. The big one that I wanted to talk about this whole podcast. The 251 main card. So where to start? We started with a strawweight fight between... Or no, it was flyweight between Paige Van Zant and Amanda Ibis. And my God, it ended quick. I expected Amanda Ibis to win by submission, but I didn't expect her to win so fast. I had her winning by submission on my verdict shit, but I had her winning in the third round after Paige put up a little bit more of a fight. Now, there could be a lot of factors about this where, like, maybe Paige has a little bit of ring rust because she hasn't fought since January of 2019. She could still be a little, you know, sore and recovering from she's broken her arm like 3 times now, so there could be that. But honestly, I just think she was outmatched. She's a good fighter, but Amanda Ibis, she's just got this like killer mentality in her. So the fight was pretty fun to watch at first. Like, it was just striking, and Paige Van Zant was trying to implement her striking until Amanda Ibis got her up against the cage and just threw her, like, tripped her and threw her to the ground, and then it just started there. Or I believe Paige Van Zant did that, and on the ground all you see is just Amanda Ibis grabbing hold of that arm and then belly down. Next thing you know, I knew it when I saw it. I'm like, if Paige can roll towards Amanda Ibis and kind of get the pressure off her arm, she can win. But I don't see that happening because, you know, she has to step over Amanda Ibis, right? And obviously Amanda Ibis is gonna just twist and churn away from that. So Paige kind of panicked and then kind of rolled, or I don't know how to, like, almost did a somersault before landing back on her feet. And it was clear, like, she was bending her arm in ways that even the female fighters can't even bend their arms, and she had to tap. So, and that, it was like not even 2 minutes into the first round. It was really quick. So I kind of won there on my verdict card, but yeah, I saw Amanda Ibis winning, just didn't see it that fast. And then the second fight was one of the fights that I was actually really excited the most for. And that is the Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade 2. And this fight won Fight of the Night honors for a good reason, even though there was some pretty decent fights like Max and Volk, which I'll be talking about later. But there's a reason why this was Fight of the Night, and I'm about to get into it. So, like I said, if you guys caught my predictions video, I explained the backstory between these two. So last year at, I believe, UFC 237 or 234, either one of those, in Brazil, I think it was a headliner, Rose was defending her strawweight title against Jessica Andrade, and it was all going well. She was piecing Jessica Andrade up on the feet and, implementing takedowns and everything, getting submissions in. And I think it was in the second or third round. It started in, I believe, the second. Rose got slammed on her head, but she got out of it quick, got back to her feet, and then started striking again. And then going into the third round, I could be wrong. It could have been first and second, but either way, just kind of, take my recollection to the first and second round if so. But anyway, in the next round, she did it again, but this time she dunked Rose on her head and knocked her out and stole the title, just to lose it to Weili, I think the next title fight. So going into this, we were wondering how Rose was going to deal with that. I mean, there was interviews where Rose was like, yeah, I'm fucking pumped for this. I'm in a better place now, blah, blah, blah. So I was a little excited coming into this fight because I was expecting Rose to just kind of, use a lot of grappling and finish with a submission or some shit like that. But my God, we got an amazing fight. So you remember in the first podcast how I explained I love watching the women fight because it's always a slugfest or fast pace, and it's constant back and forth, or just a constant fast pace. There's no stopping. Well, this is why I like the women when they fight, because Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade brought it, man. They came in and just threw. There was no takedowns, like a couple exchanges against the fence and the clinch and stuff, but it was a constant striking affair. Rose and Andrade back and forth, and Rose managed to outstrike Andrade in the first 2 rounds to score the round, for her 2-0. And ended up winning the decision. But my God, Andrade brought it in the last 2 rounds. Near the end of the second round, she brought it. And then in the third round, the entire third round, Rose was hitting her with some good shots and even, stumbled her back a couple times. But Andrade hit her so hard. If you haven't seen the pictures of Rose's face from that fight already, you should. She got fucking mollywopped. On the head. She got destroyed on the head. She's got a giant fucking shiner, split open nose and everything. She got just knocked around. So that was a fun fight because it was a constant back and forth. And honestly, if Andrade won, I'm sure people wouldn't have been too angry. But yeah, no, it was an incredible fight. And it's a good thing that it won Fight of the Night. There was a lot of amazing fights. I just want to say this now. You remember how I kept telling you last podcast, I kept telling everyone in the predictions video too, to catch this pay-per-view. It's going to be an incredible one. Even if you don't know who, Marty Fake Newsman is, then you have to catch this pay-per-view, because even if the main event doesn't deliver, you still have the 4 other fights on that card that are going to deliver no matter what. For a fact they're going to deliver. So I was really excited to see this card, and I told you guys this card was incredible. So Rose ended up winning by unanimous decision 29-28, or I think split decision 29-28. She was pretty happy about that, and I'm wondering whether Rose is going to run it back again with Andrade for a rubber match, or if there's going to be another title shot in Rose's future. Either way, I'd be excited to see both, because if I saw, Rose Andrade 3, I wouldn't be complaining. It'd be an absolute war between those two again. The only issue would be I fear it would take years off of Rose's life. But anyway, we'll go on to the next fight, the first of the 3 title fights. So, I said on the predictions video that I felt that Aldo only had a chance if he could start kicking again and if he could decision out a victory against Yan. And I gotta say, I was right. I'm not saying Aldo won because we all know the result. Yan finished him via 5th round TKO. But in the first few rounds, Yan was getting pieced up by Aldo's kicks. So, you know how everybody on MMA Twitter has been kind of memeing about saying, has anyone asked Aldo why he doesn't kick anymore? Well, he started kicking again last night, and it actually worked for him in the first 2 rounds. Maybe 3. No, I'd say 2 rounds, because the judges' scorecards going into the 5th round were 2-2. So, both guys needed a finish, and like I said, Aldo came out strong with those kicks, was piecing up Yan, and Yan even admitted that the kicks were a big, pain in the ass to him, so he had to constantly move and switch stances and everything. And that's what Aldo does. Aldo just wears you down with those kicks, knocks you out, or wins by decision. He's just really good at that, and it was working for him. But unfortunately, like I said in the predictions video, I see Yan winning with a couple of knockdowns, and it happened. There was a couple of stuns. He knocked Aldo down, I believe, once. And it's just, Yan hits so fucking hard, and I just saw it coming. I was like, Aldo, there's no way Aldo's going to win this unless he manages decision out a victory, like if he clinches and uses his kicks. But he just couldn't, and Yan ended up finishing him. It was a hard fought fight between the two. It was back and forth with Aldo kicking Yan to oblivion and getting some good shots, Yan hitting Aldo back and forth. They were both fighting for octagon exchange. There was a couple of takedown there was a couple of ground exchanges as well where Yan and Aldo showed both their experience. Yan showing that he's good at wrestling, and Aldo showing why he's good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it was really fun to watch. Like I said, it was the first of the 3 title fights, and it was one of the reasons why this card was really fun to watch last night. But we just have to talk about that 5th round stoppage. Last night, a lot of us hardcore fans, I'm pretty sure even the casual fans and the first timers were watching the 5th round last night screaming at their televisions. And I'm going to explain why for everyone who's watching this podcast today, or not watching, but listening to this podcast today and not knowing what I mean by that. So going into the 5th round, let's start off with the end of the 4th round. At the end of the 4th round, Aldo got dropped, and it was clear that Aldo was hurting because Yan was on top of him at the end of the round, hitting him with a couple of elbows. Then the bell rang. Going into the 5th round, it happened again. They were going in like a minute, trading back and forth, kind of being wary of each other, but then it happened again. He dropped Aldo and then got on top of Aldo, and after he got on top of Aldo, it was just a constant barrage of Yan elbowing him, punching him, kneeing him in the body, but mostly elbowing him and punching him. And the reason why I want to talk about the stoppage, not because it's like a highlight stoppage or anything, but I want to talk about the incompetence of the ref, in my opinion. But there's a reason why it could be argued before I say anything, and it's because that Aldo was moving a little bit, and I'm assuming Aldo moving in, a little bit in certain positions to get out of certain spots, that was enough for the ref to see that Aldo was active, apparently. But the rest of us, all of the fans, even the commentators in the booth, were saying that Aldo was taking too much damage. Aldo was taking way too much damage, and I believe he was. It was like a solid maybe 2 minutes of Yan just completely smashing Aldo on the ground, where Aldo was just turtled up. There was a good, I think, 30 seconds or 40 seconds of Aldo just being completely turtled up with no defense whatsoever, and the ref still wouldn't stop it until I think like 3 or 4 minutes into the fucking round. The ref finally stopped it. But my God, I was upset with the stoppage because I was just like, I knew Yan was going to win, but this should have been stopped a little bit earlier in the round because Aldo is taking too much unnecessary punishment. He's getting older, man. He's a veteran. We don't want him to retire at some point with severe brain damage because, you know, one of these fights, he just takes too much fucking damage and the ref is too stupid to see that. So I wanted to talk about that stoppage real quick because even though it was an awesome fight and I'm happy that Peter won, I just was really upset with that stoppage. I think it was a little late. I think that ref should be, you know, he should go back to training, go back to the rule book, or at least just evaluate what means activity when that type of situation kind of comes forward. At the same time, being a ref is quite a thankless job, so I'm not gonna, you know, give the ref too much fucking shit. I'm just saying, like, I thought it was too late of a stoppage, in my opinion. But that's enough of that. That stoppage, thinking about it, is making me sad. Not because Aldo lost, but because how much damage Aldo took. So let's get on with the second title fight of the card before we go to the main event. So the second title fight was, again, another rematch. And I believe in my predictions video, I said UFC 241 like a fucking dolt. They actually fought at UFC 245, the same card that Kamaru Usman broke Kobe Covington's jaw at. So I just want to apologize for that. I was going to edit it in post, and I completely forgot about it, so I just wanted to address that now. But anyway, so this was a rematch between Alexander Volkanovski, a former rugby player who was like 214 pounds at one point, against Max Blessed Holloway, the former featherweight champion and apparently arguably one of the greatest featherweights in the promotion's history. I don't know about that. I could say he's up there, but I don't know if he's the greatest of all time. He's in the running, but so enough of that. Let's get into the fight. So immediately, as I expected, and I think as I said in the predictions video, Alex Volkanovski was coming out with his leg kicks. And he did. And he was kicking Max all around in the first round. Honestly, he was kicking Max the whole fight. He was just beating the hell out of Max's legs. And at the end of the fight, Max's lead leg, his knee was just like pretty much completely fucking beat red because he just kept fucking pummeling that leg. But the fight was really fun to watch. It was, I think, other than Rose Andrade, it was probably fight of the night for me other than that one. The fight was quite back and forth between the two. This time around, we didn't see too much of Volkanovski's takedown at the beginning. There was a couple times where Max stuffed him, but we didn't really see too much of the groundwork until later on in the fight. It was mostly them striking back and forth, Volkanovski landing with leg kicks and, you know, hitting Max with some good shots. But the thing is, in round 1 and 2, Max knocked down Volkanovski, and a lot of people are like, well, it's not a knockdown. He didn't sit on his ass or anything. And I'm like, I don't care what you fucking say. He had Volk hurt, and Volk fell on his knee and had to get back up. I think that counts as a knockdown, and that happened at the end of the first round and then at the end of the second round like clockwork. And it was clear that at this point, Max was looking way better than he did in the 245 meetup that he had with Volkanovski. He was looking way better already. So going into the third round, Volkanovski had to switch things up, so he started using his leg kicks and his takedowns. Obviously, like I said, Max stuffed the first two, but Volkanovski, being the man who literally had a professional career dealing with 200-pound plus men for a fucking living before he jumped into MMA, just knew how to deal with that. And eventually, after a couple times of Max using the cage to stuff the takedowns, Volkanovski was able to manhandle Max down to the ground a couple times. But the thing is, Volk wasn't able to do really much with those takedowns. After he got Max flat on his back, Max would get back up to the cage and then use the cage to get back up to his feet where they'd be in the clinch again. And it, like I said, it was a constant back and forth. I personally had the fucking third round for Max. I'm gonna have to watch it back again just to kind of, you know, have a second opinion, because it could be a recency bias, and I was kind of drunk last night watching, but I think Max took round 3 just to kind of get that lead to for sure win the fight, because Max knocking down Volkanovski at the end of both 1 and 2 won him both of those rounds, no questions asked. But the thing is, rounds 4 and 5, for some reason, Volkanovski just came out on top. Just used his takedowns, used those leg kicks, was closing the distance perfectly, and it was clear that Max started to slow down. The damage was starting to show on Max's face. So, obviously, round 4 and 5 went to Alexander Volkanovski. And when the decision happened, like I said, I had Max winning round 3. So I had Max 3-2 on all scorecards going into the decision. So that would have been a 48-47 victory for Max. Instead, it ended up being a split decision, which, again, I wouldn't have been mad with if Max won the split decision because it was a close fight. But Volk ended up winning, and a lot of people were upset about that last night. A lot of people were going to Twitter and other social media platforms screaming robbery, that Max got robbed. And I'll admit, I was one of them. I have a tweet on my fucking profile right now, clear as day, saying that was a close fight, but Max got robbed. And I still believe Max got robbed, but I'm not going to say it's definitive because, like I said, I have to watch that third round back. I'm seeing people on Twitter making arguments where Volkanovski could have won round 3, and I'll admit, round 3 was really close, but I had Max winning it on my scorecard. But like I said, I was drunk last night, and after seeing how good Max was doing, I kind of wanted Max to win, so it could have been more of like a bias. So I'll watch that round back again, and in the next video where I probably cover one of the events this week, like either the Ige Cater event that's happening on Wednesday or the LFA 85 event or something. I'll probably do that later on, but I'm going to have to watch that round again. But it was a really close fight and definitely a easy second place for fight of the night, and I wouldn't have been disappointed if it won fight of the night. But like I said, I think Max won that. But hats off to Volk. Volk did amazing. It was a really, really close fight as the fight went on longer. You'd think for someone who really doesn't have championship experience as much as Max does, you'd think Volk would start to tire out later on. But like I said, he's a rugby athlete. He's dealt with these types of, heavier people before and shit, so he has amazing cardio. And it seemed that Volk was getting better and better as the rounds went on. It was weird. So it was really fun to watch. It was probably the funnest fight of the night other than that Rose fight. I absolutely love that fight, and even if you are not watching it for just the third round to, make sure that you got your decision right, I just recommend watching the fight because it was a fun back and forth affair. And if you're one of those guys that loves primarily striking and a little bit of ground attempts to, in a dog fight, you're going to love this fight because that's what it was a complete dog fight between two guys imposing their will on each other. One guy wanting to defend his belt because he wants to prove that he's a true champion, and the other guy wanting to get the belt that he lost back and solidify himself as the featherweight GOAT. And it was just, wow. Oh my God, it was a great fight. But that brings us to the main event. And before I get into the main event, I just want to talk about 1 or 2 prelim fights, if that's okay with y'all. Everybody knows I watch the prelims. I'm a fucking nerd for the prelims because, like I said, you get some sleepers on there, some good fights, and that's exactly what we got this weekend with the prelim fights. I want to name 2 in particular, 2 finishes, and they were both incredible fights between both parties. One happened opening up the card, and the other happened closing off the prelims. How fitting. So I just want to talk about those real quick. So the first fight I want to talk about on the prelims is between Martin Day and Davey Grant. This was a bantamweight fight opening up the early prelims, the Fight Pass prelims, and my God, like I said, when you watch these, it's a hit or miss, but for the most part, you just get, mildly fun fights to the most part, or, explosive fights when you watch rarely. And this was one of those explosive fights. It was a back and forth fight between Martin Day and Davey Grant, and it was an incredible striking battle. It was awesome. Like, it was, again, another dog fight on this card. I loved it. And like I said before I started reviewing these two fights, it was one of two finishes, and there's a reason why. So, as this fight was going on, like I said, it was a back and forth striking affair. These guys were just hitting each other with hard strikes, and the damage was showing on both guys. But we're going into round 3, the final round, and we're just absolutely excited with this dogfight, what we've got so far. Davey Grant is absolutely damaged to the fucking heavens. Could possibly be finished here. Martin Day too. And then I want to say maybe like 3.5 minutes into the third round. Bam! Davey Grant just fucking starches Martin Day with a walk-off KO pretty much. And wow, it was the first fight of the night, the first finish of the night, and it was an incredible finish, an incredible fight. And I just wanted to talk about it because, wow, my God, just what a way to open up the card. The second fight was between, the second fight I wanted to talk about, not the second fight on the prelims. The second fight was a women's bantamweight belt, but the second fight on the prelim that I wanted to talk about was Volkan No Fucking Time Özdemir versus the newcomer, Yuri Prochka. Yeah, the man from the Czech Republic. This guy is a killer. This guy just has power in his hands. He's a really weird fighter, really unorthodox, does all these weird like dance moves and shit. Very showboaty. Reminds me of Anderson Silva kind of. So, going into this, I thought, Yuri has a chance of winning this, but I see Volkan winning this because Volkan's the veteran in the UFC. Volkan's not probably going to have those UFC jitters because he's been in the UFC for a while, and Volkan does have power in his hands. This is light heavyweight. Anything can happen. It's like heavyweight. So, going into this fight, I thought Volkan was going to win. Nah. So, the fight was pretty fun. It was a back and forth striking affair pretty much the entire time between these two bastards. And they were both hitting each other with hard shots. There was a couple of shots that Yuri hit Volkan with that I thought he was going to finish Volkan with, but it was mostly an all Volkan affair in my opinion. I had Volkan up maybe 2 rounds until the third round when they were striking and Yuri was backing Volkan up against the cage. And he hit Volkan with a head kick that just hurt Volkan. And it was clear it hurt Volkan. So as he's backing Volkan up, who's hurt now, he hits him with a left, and then a right. That just, oh my God, just flatlines Özdemir and murders him. Just kills him, man. I was so surprised. I was like, yeah, I knew that Yuri was going to do that. But at this point, I thought that Volkan was going to get this win. But no, Yuri just murdered Volkan out of nowhere, and it was awesome. It was another sleeper fight on the prelims. And it was one of those fights, actually, when you look at the names, I was really curious why it was on the prelims, but it was a good fight to headline the ESPN, like the actual live TV portion of the pay-per-view. So, I'm not too mad, and it was worth it. And my hat's off to Yuri Prochka. He is going to be a problem in the light heavyweight division. I'm not saying he's got a chance to beat John Jones. He's still got a tiny bit ways to go. But he is going to be a absolute problem for the contenders in that division. And there's just no doubt about it. He showed that last night, that even in adversity, he's cool, he's calm, collected, and you gotta be careful of his power. He can put you away at any point. And he showed that. So, that's why I wanted to talk about those two fights. Because I just loved the Davey Grant fight and the finish. And I love the Yuri Prochka finish. Not because it's the knockout. I mean, the knockout itself was pretty fucking awesome. But just the two names that were on the line there. The fact that Volkan was 7th ranked. And Yuri was unranked going into this fight, and then he just starches a 7th ranked opponent. It just completely shook up the division, and that's why I wanted to talk about the Yuri one especially, because like I said, Yuri is going to be a problem in that division. Mark my words. Don't rush him. Give him some good contenders first, but mark my words. Come back to this podcast. Yuri Prochka is going to be a problem in the light heavyweight division. I am so glad that the UFC signed that man. I watched him in like Risen and shit, and he is just an absolute killer. So I'm excited to see where that man goes. That being said, I'm sure you guys want me to get into the main event now. That's fine. I'll get into the main event. So, just a little bit of backstory. I'm sure a lot of people know the backstory of the main event, but just getting into the backstory before I talk about the main event. So, originally, it was Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns for the welterweight strap, and everything was going smooth sailing for like the month that it was announced and leading up to the fight. And then around on 6-7 days notice, last week leading up to the fight, Gilbert Burns announced that he failed his COVID test before leaving Las Vegas, so he had to go back and he has to recover now in quarantine and shit, which is, I want a speedy recovery for him. I hope for the best for Gilbert. So a lot of people were wondering, is the card in jeopardy? Is there going to be only 2 title fights now? Is Max going to be the headliner? Is Usman going to have to pull out? But then a couple people threw their hat in the situation. Leon Edwards did, Kobe Covington did, and then that's it. The baptism himself, Gamebred, put his name in the hat. So we had 3 really good contenders to choose from, but I think it was obvious which one they were going to go with, and that was Gamebred. That was Gamebred from start to finish. I think it was just Gamebred knew he had to wait for a moment like this because the negotiations before getting the Gilbert fight was announced didn't go well. So he knew now that he threw his name in the hat, he was going to be saving this event so he could easily negotiate a better price. So it was obvious that out of the 3, Jorge was probably going to be it. But there was the possibility that they were still bitter at each other because of the negotiations. But not even, I want to say, like 24 hours later, I think like 12 hours, all of a sudden we get an announcement. Jorge Masvidal is stepping in on 6 days' notice. And next thing you know, Jorge's sharing shit where he's flying to Abu Dhabi, eating pizza and stuff, and we're worried he's not going to make weight and stuff. Come Friday, this guy makes weight. He's 170 on the dot. He looks good while he's at it, too. He looks hyped. He looks pumped. He looks ready to go. And come fight night, it started the way you'd think it would. Both guys came out, Jorge being his cocky self, and Usman kind of being wary. And the first round, a lot of people, and I'm surprised a lot of people scored it for Jorge, but I can see why people did. I scored it for Usman on my scorecard, but in the first round, it was pretty much a full stand-up affair with Usman just putting Jorge against the cage and trying to take him down, but I don't think he got Jorge down at all in the first round because Jorge stuffed every single attempt. So Jorge was just piecing him up on the feet and just hitting him with nice shots, and some of the shots, I'm surprised, they were shots that could easily put Kamaru out. So it just really goes to show how much of a chin Kamaru has. But I'm gonna say this now. It was clear those shots were hurting Kamaru because the game plan was the absolute same after that. In round 2, Kamaru just started, pushing him up against the fence, leaning against him, closing all, distance between the two so no hard shots could be hit. And obviously, of course, trying to get takedowns. Eventually, after a while, he'd use the cage to get takedowns, and he'd use those takedowns mostly for either ground and pound or just holding him there. But he wasn't even that inactive against the cage. Like, he was pretty inactive, but he wasn't even that inactive against the cage. Of course, the only thing he was doing was stomping on Jorge's toes, but he was still remaining, I guess, active enough for Mark Goddard. But anyway, so after the second round, what I explained to you, which is Kamaru being up against the cage, Kamaru just flash takedowning Jorge, and Jorge being so scared of it. Not scared, but being, trying to prepare for it and not being ready for, a striking setup or something. So that was pretty much the whole fight. The whole fight was just Usman. The whole fight was literally just Usman, grinding him against the cage, grinding him against the ground. And I have to say it was a pretty boring fight. But that being said, a lot of people are bitching about Usman's style. And you got to do what you got to do to win, guys. It's mixed martial arts for a reason. And you didn't do the same when George St. Pierre started doing that with people after getting fucking starched by Sarah the first time. You know, a lot of people were happy and still consider George St. Pierre the GOAT today. And I'm not lying, I consider him the GOAT today. But I'm just saying, like, if you're going to complain about Kamaru Usman's style, then you got to look back and say, do I really like George St. Pierre, or am I just a nostalgia bug? But, yeah, that was the main event. The whole main event was literally just that. From round 2 to round 5 was just Kamaru Usman grinding Jorge against the cage to the ground, stomping on his toes, not really letting Jorge open up. And that is a good game plan, in my opinion, because when you're going up against these guys, you're having a chance where Jorge can put you out with one shot. You know, he may not be too technical on the ground other than with sprawling and submissions, but when it comes to the feet, the guy's got power. He's really technical. He's probably he's arguably one of the best boxers in the UFC right now. So it was obvious where this was going to go. If Usman could implement his game plan unlike Ben Askren did, then that's how the fight was going to go. And that's exactly how the fight went. I knew that Usman was going to eat him up and just, grind him to a decision. And that's exactly what happened, unfortunately. But that being said, yeah, the main event was kind of a bust because of how Usman fought. And I'm not going to complain. It was boring, but Usman fought smart. And I'm going to leave it at that. But the rest of the card was incredible. The other prelim fights, even though they were mostly decisions, were pretty fun to watch too. But we had 2 incredible fights and finishes on the prelims. Had all 4 amazing fights and finishes on the main card. Obviously, not all 4 of those fights were finishes. Only like 2 of them were. But we had 2 fight of the night calibers, 2 amazing finishes on the main card, and unfortunately we ended it with the Kamaru Usman Jorge Masvidal fight, but that's okay because we got what we paid for, I think, in this pay-per-view. It's no UFC 249 where we got like everything on the card, including Tony and Gaethje, but it's still worth it. I honestly hope you guys caught the pay-per-view last night. It was worth it. All of the fights on the main card, other than the Kamaru one, were just absolute bangers. They were explosive, back and forth, really good for casual fans to get into, and it was just a great night of fights for the UFC. I think if this COVID bullshit wasn't going on right now, and they were able to have fans, the UFC probably would have made a lot off of that, considering 1, it's in Abu Dhabi, and 2, I'm sure because there's not really much for sports going on right now, that pay-per-view would have sold massive with the 3 title fights on it. So just wanted to leave it at that because the card was amazing despite the main event going the way it did. Next on the agenda, though, is Dan Ige taking on Calvin Kattar on Wednesday. Yeah, that's right. We're not done with MMA this week. This is an incredible week for MMA fans because not only did you just have UFC 251, but for combat sports fans in general, martial arts fans, you got Submission Underground today. So you got some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu action going on today with Chael Sonnen's promotion. And then later on this week, like I said, we've got LFA 85 on Friday. And Wednesday, we've got Kattar versus Ige. So I want to talk about Kattar versus Ige real quick. Mainly just the main event and the co-main event. I want to talk about the main event first because Calvin Kattar is coming off of an incredible knockout win against Jeremy Stephens. For those who didn't see it, it was a back and forth affair between the two where they were just all striking because that's what these guys all do, man. Calvin Kattar and Jeremy Stephens, they're both guys who just throw down. They love to throw down. That's just what they do. And during the fight, like I said, it was back and forth. All of a sudden, Calvin Kattar hits him with a fucking elbow or some shit and knocks Jeremy Stephens flat on his fucking back. And it was just incredible. And like I said, guys like these, like Calvin Kattar, bring it. They bring the fight. So I talked about Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker a while back, or I think I did anyway. That was an amazing fight. So for anyone who wants to get into MMA and wants a very, casual, friendly fight that's just pretty much all striking, this one is going to be it because Dan Ige is another guy who brings it. He loves to strike. He's got good ground game, but he loves to strike. He fucking stood with Edson Barboza and took Edson Barboza to split decision, So this guy is going to give Calvin Kattar a run for his money. And no matter who wins, man, I think the fans are going to win out of anything, because this is going to be an incredible fight for these two. I'm excited for this main event, honestly. This main event is just going to be absolutely explosive. It's going to be just fireworks. Two guys throwing down because both guys want it. They're both in a contention spot to get close to a title shot, man. They're, I think, in the top 5. These guys are fighting for a spot to get at that fucking title. So the next person to diddle Volkanovski's butthole, I guess. So I'm excited for this fight, man. But in the co-main event, we've got a flyweight bout between, hell yeah, Tim Elliott, who is an absolute veteran of this game. His record may not look good, 16-11, but don't you think differently. This guy is a former Titan FC flyweight champion. This man gave Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson a run for his money at some point. Almost finished Demetrius Johnson in their title fight. And just, this guy is an incredible fighter, despite his record not showing much for it. He's going up against Ryan Benoit, and both of these guys are good at striking, but the thing that I think they both prosper at the most, Benoit a little bit more in striking, but both of them prosper in grappling. I've seen Tim Elliott do some fucking incredible things on the ground, because Tim Elliott is an incredible grappler. I think he's a wrestler primarily, but he's also got a good belt in jiu-jitsu, I believe. And I've just seen him get so many crazy submissions. This man can finish you on the feet or on the ground, but you better fucking watch out when you're on the ground, because anything can happen when he's on the ground with you. Same thing with Ryan Benoit. I haven't seen too much of Ryan Benoit except for a little bit of his groundwork, but the same thing could be said there. Ryan Benoit is dangerous. Anything could happen on the ground, but I personally think Tim Elliott might get this if it goes to the ground, because Tim Elliott's an incredible grappler in my opinion. Just absolutely stellar. My God. He's just a veteran in the sport too, so I think the experience will help as well. That's just another thing you got to take in fact. Experience helps only if you're still spring enough to be able to beat the young guys, right? And I think Tim Elliott's still kind of young enough to beat the young guys, so I think that experience will help him. His incredible grappling skill will probably help him, but we'll see. I might eat my words if Ryan Benoit puts him to sleep or something, or out decisions him or some shit like that, so we'll see Wednesday night. But yeah, that's the first of 3 MMA events, or 4 MMA events, I believe. I think 3 MMA events we're getting this week, and I'm excited for it. I just have to say, I'm excited that yet again, since the first time since I think UFC 249, they had 3 fights in 3 main cards in a week, and I haven't seen that since. So I'm excited for this, because usually when you're an MMA fan, you gotta wait a week for each card, or 2 weeks, or however long the next fight is. So this was really exciting. So that's the first one of the 2 cards. The second one I'm going to talk about later, but I just want to do a little bit of a talk about the LFA 85 main event. It's a inaugural, I believe, strawweight or flyweight women's bout for the title at LFA. Apparently it's a well talked about one. 2 fighters that I'm not very familiar with, but you know me, I love learning about new fighters every day, seeing new people fight. So I'm definitely going to be tuning in. It's a title fight, so got big implications, a lot on the line. And it's happening Friday night. So if you guys want to catch that, somebody may be streaming it for everybody, or if you got UFC Fight Pass, you can get your free trial. If you guys don't have one yet, you can start your free trial when the LFA card's going on, and then you could catch your UFC card the next day. If you live in America, I believe the UFC cards play on Fight Pass full, but if you're here in Canada like me, we only get the prelims, which kind of sucks. So anyway, I do recommend checking out the LFA card. But especially the main event. The main event is apparently one that's going to be exciting. They even were just hyping it up on the LFA 84 fight card. People on MMA Twitter were saying the same thing. It's going to be an incredible fight. So that's going to be one to check out. But the next UFC event that I want to talk about, and it's the last topic of the podcast, is going to be the final UFC event for this week. I want to talk about it because, one, it's got title implications. Unfortunately, I'm a guy who absolutely loves the flyweights, and they don't get much love. And yet again, the flyweight title is on a fucking fight night card, so I'm a little upset about that. But nonetheless, it's Joey B versus Deiveson Figueiredo, or so we thought. So as of recording this, yesterday, they announced that Deiveson had a positive COVID test, or several of them, but they weren't sure if it was an actual positive. He's hoping that it's a false negative or a false positive or whatever it is, so it's actually a negative test. So we're still awaiting on those. But as of right now, we heard nothing yet. But that fight is in jeopardy. We could either see no title fight at all, or what I heard was that Pantoja is going to be stepping in, even though I think he was supposed to be fighting on that card. But he's going to be stepping in to save the title fight, which would be awesome. But I mean, I hope for the best for Deiveson, honestly. Last time, unfortunately, he had another chance to beat Joey B for the title, and he did beat Joey B for the title, but unfortunately, going into that bout, he didn't make weight, so it didn't end up being for the title, but that's besides the point. So the big thing about this fight is, one, it's for the inaugural flyweight title since Henry Cejudo fucking vacated that, I think almost a year ago now, when he moved up to bantamweight and decided he's going to defend the bantamweight title. So that's been vacant for a while now. And not only that, but this is the second fight between Deiveson Figueiredo and Joey B. But it's in jeopardy right now because of these COVID tests. So I'm hoping for all the best. I'm really hoping that Figueiredo gets his fight. But if not, I'm really hoping that Pantoja fucking steps in and saves this title fight, because the flyweight division needs a champion now. Like, they need a champion, someone who is going to be fun and entertaining to watch, and they just need a champion, man. That fucking entire division is just bonkers right now with no champions, so they're just really in dire need of a champion at the moment. So I'm hoping for the best for that entire card, but I'm really hoping for the best for Deiveson Figueiredo and his team, because, you know, it sucks to prepare for all of that and then, you know, get completely pushed away because you prepared and you're sick. You're sick with a virus that everybody's not trying to get right now. Same thing happened with Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns trained probably for like 4 weeks straight for a straight month after his Tyron Woodley fight, only to, like 6 days before the fight, get his COVID tests, and he failed them. And he had to go back. It's just a shitty feeling. So, like I said, just like with Gilbert Burns, my best goes to Deiveson Figueiredo if he actually ends up testing positive. But if he doesn't, I'll be happy. And I'm hoping for the best. I hope he makes weight. I hope this didn't fuck up his weight cut or his preparation. So I'm hoping he makes weight, and I'm hoping the title fight is official and we finally get a fucking champion in this division, because I'm sick and tired of seeing the flyweights in absolute disarray because of Henry Cejudo leaving. Like, that just upsets me. But anyway, with that being said, just a few takeaways from UFC 251. So, first off, who are we going to have next for the featherweight title? Since apparently Max lost that fight, are we going to see them run it back because it was controversial? Or is Volkanovski going to move on to a new guy? Maybe, I don't know, Calvin Kattar might jump into the mix and, you know, get a title shot. Maybe Dan Ige. Maybe somebody like Edson Barboza might rally back. There's tons of people in the featherweight division, though, that could possibly challenge Volk for the featherweight title. So it's exciting to see who's going to end up being the next challenger for Volk. But that being said, Volk is probably going to be there for a while. He did what he had to do to win that fight, and I think he's going to be the champ for a good while until somebody with, you know, a lot more physicality and a lot more credentials come his way, and somebody a lot more young comes his way and takes him out. So I'm excited to see who goes up against Volkanovski next. Second thing to take away from it is Peter Yan as the bantamweight champion now. Who is going to be next for Yan? Obviously, I think Aljo is first. I'm pretty sure that Dana even confirmed that Aljo's last fight against Cody Stamin. Or no, it was Corey Sandhagen, yep. He beat Corey Sandhagen, and Dana confirmed that that fight was a number one contender fight. So I'm assuming Aljo will be next. But after that, who are we going to end up seeing, and what do you guys think? Is Corey Sandhagen going to come into the mix and, save himself. What about Cody Stamin? Cody Stamin's another guy. He could go back down to bantamweight after his fight with Jimmy Rivera. We'll see. But the bantamweight division's another division that's completely stacked. We've got people like Cody Garbrandt in there that want a piece of the fucking prize. There's just a lot of people in the bantamweight division that can easily take that title right now. Marlon Moraes, Rafael Assunção could, get a rally back and get a possibility to, fight Peter Yan for it. There's just a lot of people in that division, so I'm hoping to see Yan defend it soon against somebody high level. Hopefully Aljo is the next step. I'm really hoping to see Aljo as the next step, but yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next for these two guys. And then last but not least, for Kamaru Usman, who do you think should be next for Kamaru Usman? Should it be Gilbert Burns again, since Gilbert Burns is the number one contender, apparently, because he beat Tyron Woodley, and because he had prepared so much for this fight, and then on 6 days' notice it got stripped away from him? When he recovers and, all is good, all is well with him, do any of you think that he should be the next one? Because I do. He beat the number one contender, in my opinion, so I think that he should be the next shot. If not, I believe a rematch with Colby Covington is in order. But other than that, unless Leon Edwards can get past his next fight, maybe Leon Edwards could be in the mix. That's the thing. Another division that's just absolutely stacked to the teeth. So it's just a lot of takeaways from this event. Another one is, where's Paige Van Zandt going to be going now after this? I swear this is the last takeaway. Where's Paige Van Zandt going after this? Because a big storyline going into this fight that she was going in against Amanda Ribas. It was her last fight on her contract, and she was debating whether she was going to sign another contract with the UFC or if she was going to kind of just, feel out free agency. So I'm kind of curious to see where she's going to go now, especially now that she, according to Dana White, got smoked in her last fight, which she kind of did. I'm wondering where she's going to go next. Is she going to move on to a different hobby? Is she going to go on to Bellator with her husband? Because I feel like that was one thing that they kind of wanted to do. Many MMA journalists, people who kind of know them as well, know that they have a huge bond. So I feel like that was kind of the move. So win or lose, I feel like Paige was probably going to go and work with Scott Coker. So we'll see. But I feel like the final takeaway for this is that Paige is not going to be the UFC anymore. I think Paige is going to feel out free agency and, kind of see her options, I suppose. All right, so anyway, that's it for the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed the fights. And especially this coming week, there's some great fights coming. If you want to check the rest of the main card for Kattar versus Ige and Figgy versus Joey B, or possibly Pantoja versus Joey B, Google them. There's some great fights. Fighters you guys may not know, but great fights nonetheless. But honestly, this is a great weekend or full week for mixed martial arts fans. So that's it for the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. I will see you guys next week after all of the fights that happened this week. I feel like I'm going to have a lot to talk about next week. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys next week. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.